There's something deeply disturbing happening right before our eyes, something so evident yet so normalized that it goes unnoticed. Children are losing their childhood, and it's not because they're growing up fast, it's because we adults are pushing them out of it. Childhood, that sacred territory of dreams, of meaningless play, of laughter that echoes without apparent reason, is being invaded by expectations that don't belong to it. What should be time to play has become time to perform. What should be time to discover has become time to appear. What should be time to make mistakes without fear has become time to please and win approval. The name for this is adultification, and this is what we need to talk about before there's only silence left where childhood once lived. I've watched this transformation accelerate in recent years, and it breaks my heart. We live in an era where we've never talked so much about protecting childhood, yet we've never sold so hard the idea that children need to look like adults to have value. It's a cruel contradiction. We proclaim purity while encouraging performance. We applaud innocence while exploiting the aesthetics of maturity. Deep down, we no longer know what to expect from childhood, and perhaps that's why we're destroying it without realizing it. Adultification is the rush that society imposes on children. It's when we transform boys and girls into miniature adults, demanding from them a posture, an aesthetic, and a maturity that doesn't belong to their age. It's dressing a small body in clothes that belong to a large one. It's putting makeup on someone who should still be playing with finger paints. It's teaching choreographies that simulate sensuality to those who have barely learned to write their own names. It's giving emotional responsibilities to those who barely understand their own emotions. Adultification is, in essence, stealing time that doesn't come back and condemning children to live experiences they cannot process. Anyone who thinks adultification started with social media is mistaken. In the Middle Ages, children were seen only as adults in miniature. They dressed the same, worked early. The concept of childhood as a special phase of life didn't exist. It was only between the 17th and 18th centuries, with thinkers like John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, that the notion emerged that children are developing beings who need specific care and stimulation. Rousseau, for example, defended that childhood should be respected and that each phase of life had its own rhythm. This thinking gradually influenced changes in education and child-rearing, especially among wealthier and more educated families. Despite advances in ideas about child protection, economic necessity and the absence of effective laws kept millions of minors in adult roles. From the 20th century onward, with the strengthening of child protection laws and the valorization of school education, childhood began to be more recognized and defended. But it seems we're going backwards, and going back with even more force, because now there's an entire industry profiting from adultification. Children's fashion shows, makeup for 5-year-old girls, beauty contests where vanity replaces play. It's the entertainment industry invading childhood, and not just on stages or runways, it's in advertisements, in toys that imitate adult utensils, in digital content that teaches how to be an influencer before they even know who they are. Children become characters, showcases, products, and the more they look like adults, the more profitable they become. Childhood in this scenario isn't a right, it's a market. Social media has accelerated what was already underway. If before, adultification happened in occasional fashion shows, today it happens every second in short viral videos. The logic is cruel. Likes, followers, algorithms. Children learn early that their value lies in appearance, in performance, in imitated sensuality. They don't understand the mechanism, but they absorb the logic and carry on their shoulders the pressure of an invisible audience that judges them, comments on them, demands from them. But what's the price of this rush? The consequences are devastating, though silent. Anxiety, because the child can never live up to the role imposed on them. Low self-esteem, because the small body doesn't fit the adult form demanded of them. Depression, because childhood stops being shelter and becomes a stage. And most seriously, early exposure opens space for violence, for abuse, for exploitation. By anticipating the body, society also anticipates the predatory gaze upon it. And this isn't just unfair, it's criminal. When you take childhood away from a child, it's not just playtime that disappears. It's time to mature in peace. It's time to discover themselves without external pressures. Adultification destroys identity construction because before the child understands who they are, they've already been informed about what they should be. And when they try to be what they're not yet, they fail. And when they fail, they suffer. Childhood should be the space for error, for experimentation, for lightness. But adultification transforms error into shame. And shame, when cultivated too early, becomes a burden that accompanies them into adult life. Psychologists warn, we've never seen so many cases of anxiety and depression in children as today. Never have so many 9, 10, 11-year-old girls looked in the mirror and felt hatred for their own bodies. Never have so many children felt tired of being children. And all this because they're forced to fit into molds that weren't made for them, because they confuse acceptance with likes, because they confuse affection with public approval, because they confuse value with appearance. In this confusion, childhood stops being shelter and becomes a battlefield against themselves. Adultification isn't just an individual problem. It's a social problem. When society normalizes the image of sexualized children, it opens space for a dangerous world. When media profits from premature aesthetics, it opens space for predatory gazes. When algorithms reward adult performance in children's bodies, they don't just influence children, they encourage adult predators to consume these images. It's a perverse cycle that begins with innocent applause and ends in devastating abuse. Child adultification feeds sexual violence, and denying this is closing our eyes to the cruelest reality. The market discovered that children sell. They used to sell toys, but that's no longer enough. Now they sell adult clothes, accessories, makeup, cell phones, lifestyles. And the more adult they appear, the more consumer power they wield. Children are transformed into consumers before learning to be citizens. And worse, they're often transformed into products. It's not just about the girl who wants to wear makeup, it's about an industry that decides she should want it and profits from it. Adultification also emerges from within the home in a silent but equally devastating way. Parentification. Parentification is when a child is forced to occupy an adult's place within the family. It's when they need to care for siblings, emotionally support parents, assume responsibilities that don't belong to their age. In parentification, childhood isn't just abbreviated, it's sacrificed. Parentification can be instrumental when the child assumes practical tasks that should belong to adults. Or it can be emotional when the child becomes confidant, therapist, companion to pain they can't name. In both cases, the result is the same. The child learns too early to carry burdens, and in learning, they unlearn how to play, unlearn how to dream, unlearn how to be a child. The marks of parentification don't fade with time. Many adults who were parentified still carry difficulties in trusting, in surrendering, in relaxing. They live in a constant state of alert. They feel they need to always be available, always ready, always strong. They're adults who learned early to care for others, but never learned to be cared for. And this invisible wound shapes entire lives. Parentification is one of the cruelest forms of adultification because it transforms childhood into a tool and transforms the child into a shield. They're called strong, mature, responsible, but deep down, they're just exhausted. Exhausted from living roles they didn't choose, exhausted from carrying burdens they shouldn't know about. And all this in silence, because unlike the child who performs on stage, the parentified child has no audience, only solitude. Not always does parentification arise from vanity, projection, or carelessness. In many families, it's born from necessity. In the absence of public policies, faced with poverty, lack of daycare, absence of one parent, the older child becomes the pillar. They care for siblings, organize the house, manage routines that should be adults' responsibility. Not because parents want it that way, but because there's no choice. Because hard and unequal life forces families to reverse roles. This reality can't be judged simplistically, but it also can't be romanticized. When a 10-year-old girl needs to become a substitute mother, when a 12-year-old boy is called the man of the house, these children carry responsibilities that exceed their age. They mature too fast, but they mature without support, without structure, without space to make mistakes, and they grow up believing their only function is to sustain others. It's parentification born from inequality that often perpetuates cycles of pain between generations. It's not about blaming these families. They do what they can with what they have. But it's about looking at the problem collectively. Because when society abandons families, childhood pays the price. And when childhood is sacrificed, we all lose. True protection against parentification by necessity won't come just from families, but from public policies that guarantee support, accessible daycare, real support so no child needs to become an adult before their time. Each society reveals its soul by how it treats its children. If we protect them, we have a future. If we exploit them, we dig our own ruin. Adultification is the denial of time. It's the present crushing the future. It's the market suffocating innocence. It's the predatory gaze disguising itself as applause. And the result is a generation that grows too fast in body and too slow in soul. A generation trained to perform, but not to feel. To appear, but not to be. To conquer, but not to dream. What we're producing aren't conscious adults. They're fragmented adults, interrupted childhoods transformed into fragile maturities, and the whole world will pay the price for this. Social media needs to be rethought. It's not possible for algorithms to continue rewarding child adultification. It's not possible for children's exposure to be treated as innocent entertainment. We need regulation, responsibility, limits, because without them, profit will always speak louder than protection. And a society that doesn't protect its children is condemned to destroy itself. We can't expect technology companies to have conscience, but we can demand they have responsibility, and we can choose how to use them within our homes. Faced with all this, the inevitable question is, what can we do? The first answer is obvious but almost always forgotten. Let children be children. It seems simple, but in practice, it's revolutionary. Because it means resisting the industry's rush. It means saying no to the market that wants to accelerate childhood. Playing isn't a waste of time. Playing is the child's work. It's through play that they learn, experiment, create, strengthen themselves, and every time we prevent this, we're stealing from them something no future can return. The issue of adultification isn't just psychological, social, or cultural. It's above all an existential question. Because childhood is more than a phase of life. Childhood is where humanity keeps its innocence. It's the space where we dream without measures, where we believe in the impossible, where time is slow and full of discoveries. When we steal this, we don't just take from the child, we take from all of us. Because a society without childhood is a society without future, and worse still, without hope. If childhood isn't protected, what will remain of adult life will be just a shadow, because no one can flourish when they've been uprooted from the soil too early. That's why the responsibility is ours. Each of us has the duty to protect childhood's time, to resist adultification, to ensure that children can fully live what belongs to them. It's not just an individual question, it's a collective one, because how we treat our children defines who we are as humanity. And the question that remains is, what world do we want to leave behind? A world that stole childhood, or a world that protected it as the most precious treasure? The choice is still ours, but time is running out. Every day we delay, more childhoods are lost forever. And when childhood dies, hope dies with it. The madness destroying our future isn't some distant threat. It's happening now in our schools, our homes, our screens. But awareness is the first step toward change. And change begins with each of us choosing to protect what's most sacred, the right of every child to be exactly what they are, Children, with all the wonder, mess, and magic that comes with it. The theft of childhood stops when we decide it stops. The question is, are we ready to make that choice?